So welcome everyone. So I'm happy to host a SQL training session to all of you. So I see your enthusiasm to learn new skill. Okay, and SQL is a relatively easy skill which can be learned quickly provided you practice continuously. Okay, so that's the main thing. We will have to. Okay, we will have to. We will have to keep practicing it. Okay, on a daily basis we'll have to keep practicing it, maybe just for half an hour. Okay, so you'll be able to become a good expert. So if you have good problem solving skills, if you think you have good logical skill set with the data, with max, okay, and with excel, if you already know these things, you can pretty much strongly believe that now you can become a data analyst or you can become a data scientist. Okay, so the only thing matters is the effort that you are going to spend with the SQL. Okay, so with that introduction, brief introduction, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to share, I'm sharing my entire screen. Okay, so you guys can see my screen. I'm going to go to the PPT. Okay, so yeah, let me bring this down. Okay, so it's going to be a SQL training with a real life case study. Okay, so it's not a normal SQL training where I'm going to share SQL statements, or we are going to just practice SQL statements. No, that's not the right way. So if you really want to learn SQL, which you can apply in your job, right? You should know how to apply it for a real life scenario or real life use case. So that's what exactly we are going to see. Okay, and today we are going to look at the introduction. So before starting the presentation, I just wanted to dedicate this to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, because the whole training session, this 15-hour session, is primarily to dedicated to the great man, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, and his 91st birth anniversary is coming on 15th October. Okay, so the idea is to complete this training before that, so that I make few people more skilled, okay, on a free basis, right? So without charging anything. So that's the whole intention. With that dedication, I just wanted to move on to show you the schedule. So this is going to be the schedule, okay, on a daily basis. Okay, so make sure you join at the right time at 8 o'clock, and we are going to close at sharp 9 o'clock, because I cannot extend. Even if I want to, I cannot extend, because the Google meeting is only allow for 1 hour. Okay, and with that we are going to see lesson 1 today. We are going to understand what is database. Okay, and then we are going to look at the SQL Server Management Studio overview, and then we are also going to see some of the SQL basic concepts, and finally we are going to look into the case study. So that's what we are going to do today. Yeah, that's what we are going to do today, and you will see bunch of tight schedule and the concept. We are going to work everything on the case study. So entire lesson, right, lesson 1 to lesson 15, we are going to run it through with the case study. So you are going to learn whole of the SQL, using which you can pretty much say you are pretty much in and out of SQL. So this whole training is going to be based on Microsoft SQL Server, and you are going to learn programming. You are going to learn how to create database design, and you are also going to learn some of the advanced SQL concepts. Okay, and finally we will have a project presentation or the case study presentation, right? And then today's agenda is we are going to look into the database fundamentals. What is database? We need to first understand it. Conceptually, we need to understand. And then we also need to understand, okay, what tool we are going to use and what are the basics of SQL. And finally, we are going to learn what is a case study. What case study we are going to work for next 15 hours. Okay. And finally, we are going to have quiz on at the end of every session. So today we will have a quiz. And without wasting any time, I'm going to go to the database management studio. Okay, so I'm going to explain what is database management system, DBMS. So before we get into database management system, we need to first understand what is data. right? So that is the first and foremost. We should understand what is data, right? So data is something adds value. This is the smallest unit of information which gives us value, okay, meaningful value. It could be qualitative value or it could be quantitative value. Okay, anyone wants to join? I think somebody's trying to join. So I've accepted. So I see the count has increased to 33. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you um, the um, the text. Okay, so right now this is my biodata. So everyone has a resume, right? So this is my resume. So if you have to see the resume, this is more of a text data, right? So this is describing who I am and how many years of experience I have and what all companies that I've worked and what all technologies I've worked. So right now this is, see, if you see, it is more of a text, right? So it is more of a news. It is more of an information. So here lot of data is embedded. So that is what we need to, this is more of an unstructured data. Text data is an unstructured data because data is not structured, right? So it is like written like a paragraph. So but if you see, there are good amount of data is embedded inside in an unstructured way. For example, my name is a data. Okay, so my number of years of experience is a data. Okay, so which industry I worked is a data, and what all companies that I worked is a data. So like that, so when I left a particular year is a data, October 2000, in 2021, right? I left IT. So each and everything is a data. For example, if you see, okay, what all technologies that I worked is a data, and let's say 2 patents that I have, so it is a data. So but this, I need to search for data, right? So I need to search for data in an unstructured data. So that's why we need to have a structure. We need to first structure the data. So how we can structure the data? If I put the same information in an Excel, right? So with a different column and with a different row. So you clearly see it is in a more structured format. So the good thing about it, this is now it's easily readable. So I can interpret it. In fact, I can do a lot of features no, with column wise, right? So I can understand. So another good thing is of with the structured data is I can store more than 1% data because the structure, it is structured, right? So it has its own column and record. For example, not just one person, I can keep expanding it to multiple people, right? So now I can store for a team. So if I just click this, you see Excel is giving me the number of people in the team, and it is giving me the total experience of these team members, and it is also giving average at the bottom, right? So the structured data is helping us to do lot of analytics, right, with the numbers, and also we can do some more analysis. I'm going to show you. So for example, because I have structured the data, I can do aggregation. I can summarize the data. I can even generate charts, right? That's the whole purpose of structured data. So now we can see meaningful data. For example, if a CTO or a CEO of a company looks at this data, he will clearly understand, okay, my average experience of my testing team is less. It's below 8. It's 8. So I need to hire a senior test engineers, right? So it helps us to understand a bigger picture. So the structure data and aggregating data is also helping us to take some decision. Okay, so with that, I hope quickly we understand what is a data. For storing this data, we need a database management system. Okay, so we have this database management system. So many tools that you get to hear in the industry, right? So for example, SQL Server in Microsoft, Microsoft has a SQL Server product, and Oracle has Oracle database system. And we also have a lot of freewares, right? So MySQL, PostgreSQL. So there are so many databases, and nowadays we have even data warehouse specific databases like Redshift and Snowflake, and cloud-based databases, right? In Azure, Microsoft has a cloud-based database. There are so many products are coming. So, but all these products' intention is to store the data, right? It could be structured, storing the structured data, or it could be first loading the unstructured data and then finally converting them into structure. Only when we convert them into a structured, right? So we will be able to get an insight from the data. We can do a lot of we can make it more, even more powerful. Okay, so right now we have seen an example of structured data, right? So we have seen a CV biodata, how that can be converted into structured data. Because it can be structured, we can also store for multiple data because the data is in uniform, right? So it's easy for us to add more members data. Because we can add more numbers data, we can even do a lot of analytics. I can do for a company, I can do across company. Nowadays you see lot of analytics products are available which showcase a lot of reports using LinkedIn, because LinkedIn data is for across company, across industry. So that's the beauty of structuring data and database management system. So we have seen, we need to understand what is structured data. Structured data, we have seen Excel is more of a structured data because it is data is stored in a tabular format, rows and columns. Okay, so rows and columns, and every row, every column contains the same data. Name means every record contains a name, right? It is of string type, right? And every row of experience, in my previous example, if you see, yeah, here every row, this is containing numeric data, same data, it doesn't change, right? So that is called structured data. Semi-structured data is XML. So XML you would have seen, right? XML, JSON kind of files, which are self-explanatory. For every record it will say what is this using a tag. For example, XML says name, okay, within a tag, and followed by the actual name, right? And then it ends the tag with the name. So like that, semi-structured data can have varying number of columns in every record, right? It can be optional. For example, one record can store mobile number 1, mobile number 2. Another employee data, it might contain only one mobile number. For third employee, it may not have even the mobile number. So that is why it is called semi-structured data. Even though there is some structure in it, but it is not strictly following. Okay. And the examples for unstructured data is video files, audio files, text files. Right now we have seen my biodata, right? So that is a typical example of unstructured data. Okay. So these are the examples of unstructured data. So now, and finally we are going to see, now we understand data. Now we know database system is there. Various vendors like companies have kind of has a product for database management system. How do we manage work with the data? So that is why we have a programming language called SQL. SQL is nothing but structured query language. Okay. So structured query language is the medium mechanism through which we are going to interact with the database. Okay, to get the data, to populate the new data, to change the data, right? But if it is a language, I mean there should be a standard, right? So because, for example, Microsoft SQL, if the syntax is totally different from Oracle SQL, then it's very difficult for a developer or anyone to work with, right? Or switching to different database system. So that's why ANSYS system, so American National Standards of Institute, right? They have they kind of came up with a standardized way of SQL, writing SQL. So that is called ANSYS SQL. Okay. So all these companies, right? They took that as a base, but still they have their own variation. For example, Oracle SQL is a totally procedural base, so it's a PL SQL, whereas Microsoft SQL is called T SQL. It's more of a transaction based SQL. So like that, each one they may have little variation, but predominantly it follows the ANSYS standard. Okay. Now I'm going to show you. So you can install, for my presentation, I'm going to use the SQL Server. I'm going to for all these hands-on. So if you want to also practice after this session, you can install the SQL Server. It is free, and SQL Server 2019 Developer Edition, if you install, it is free. You can install it onto your desktop or on your laptop. I've installed on my laptop. And then you need to choose a database engine that is sufficient. You don't need to choose whole lot of things, right? So only database engine is sufficient. Or if you don't want to install in your local, you want to go with the SQL Azure, right? So you can directly, you don't want to install anything, you can just sign up to a free trial. This comes up for some time, so you can use this, and you can directly create a SQL using Azure SQL. So now the SQL Server Management Studio is the client tool, right? So the first is the server, second is the client. So this is the location from where you can install the SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, and I'm going to show you what is SQL Server Management Studio, how it helps. Let me show you the SQL Management Studio. So this is the SQL Management Studio. Okay, so this is the SQL Management Studio, and you will see this is I'm going to connect. Okay, so first we need to connect to a server, right? So we need to connect to a server. I've installed my own server, so I'm just going to connect to the server. And if I have to write a new SQL, I need to just click new query. So here is where we are going to write SQL. Okay, so I'm not going to cover everything about this client tool. The 2-3 things are good enough. Okay, and right now, so here is where we are going to write a query. So just I'm writing one sample query so that you just understand. So let's say I will write a query from a table. So don't worry about the query whether you can understand or not. But here the point is to show the result. So only these 3 panes are important. One is, this is called Object Explorer. You are going to browse all these objects that are available in the server, okay, that are created in the server. And then this is the query editor. We are going to use this to write the queries. And when you execute using this execute, just highlight the statement that you want to execute and then press on this execute. So you are going to get the result set. This is called result pane. The result, you can get it in grid format, or if you want to get that in a text format. For example, you can just toggle this. You can just press this and execute it again. So you will get that in the text format. But mostly people use the grid format because it is very intuitive, easy to understand. Okay, because this is like looking at the actual table, right? It gives that feeling. So this is good enough, and you can store the query, you can save it, and you can open it. All these are a normal window operations. So I'm going to go back here. So using SQL Management Studio, you can connect to a server, use a login, and then you have seen Object Explorer. So as we go through in the tutorial or the case study, you will understand more about the Object Explorer. You will get familiarized with things, and then query editor and result pane. And the menus also, there are so many menu items, but the important thing is new query, right? So as you create a new query, so it creates another tab. You see, you can just toggle between different queries. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the PPT, and then I'm going to move on to the database. So in a database management system, we need to understand what is a database, right? The first thing that we need to understand is a database. So database is more of a container. So database is more of a container. It is going to hold all the objects that we are going to create. Okay, so all the data we are going to create is going to be stored inside a database. So everyone is familiar with the folder, right? In a operating system, Windows or Mac, wherever that you work. So we first create a folder, and inside a folder we create various files. For example, we create document file, Word document file, right, Notepad file, or we create Excel files. All these files we create inside a folder. So the database can be related with a folder. Okay, folder is more of a container, right? So what is the purpose of a folder? It is going to hold the files which contains data. Similarly, database is a container which is going to hold the objects which will store the data. Okay, and also for security. For example, folder, if you don't want to grant access to somebody to access your files, what do? You revoke permission or grant permission to that folder. Similarly, at a database level, you can grant access or you can revoke permission. So that's the whole idea of database. And there are system databases in SQL Server. There by default, when you install a server, there are 4 system databases which comes by default. Okay, so the master database is the main database which is responsible for storing all other database information. So you can relate something like a root folder or system folder in an operating system. It is similar to that. These 4 databases are crucial. Without these 4 databases, primarily the master database is very, very crucial. When I create any new database, the information gets stored first in the master database. Master database contains the information about all other databases, right? So you will see, this is where in the SQL Server Management Studio, you will see all the available databases, right? And also you can see it in the Object Explorer. So here you see system databases, the master database. Okay. So master database holds the information about all other databases that we create and all logins that we create. So logins and the databases, everything is stored in the master database. And model database is more of a template. Okay, more of a template. Let's say whenever I create a new database, what SQL Server will do, it will take the copy of model database and create as a new database for me. Okay, that's the whole purpose of model database. And tempdb is the temporary database which SQL uses for processing. In some way, you can say this is similar to RAM, memory, right? So it's a more of a working place for SQL Server. And then MSDB is a database where it stores primarily for jobs, running jobs, tracking the jobs, scheduled jobs. In SQL, we can also schedule batch jobs, right? So all this information gets stored in the MSDB. Okay, so these are the 4 databases that you see here. Okay, and I am going to go back to the PPT. So we can create user database. Why we need user database? As I mentioned, let's say for a particular purpose, I create a database. For all related objects, I create under a single database. For example, if I'm creating a database for school management system, then I can create a database for school. I call the database as school DB. For example, I create a database for my HR, human resource, for my company. Then I can create a human resource DB or HR DB. So like that, you can create a database for storing all related objects. Okay. And the syntax for creating data. Hello. Yeah. So for creating database, the syntax is create database. It's very simple. You don't need to write anything else. So what you need to do, let me clear this and create database. Okay. So let's say I'm creating a database for school DB. Okay. So in SQL Server, you can just create the database with this syntax. A new database has been created. Okay, so the syntax is create database school DB. So how can I see whether the database has been created or not? I can come here, I can refresh. I need to refresh this. So if I refresh, you see here the school database has been created. So the placeholder has been created, right? All these object types, the folder has been created, but there are no objects, but all are empty, right? But the tables, everything, right? It's all empty, but they are created. Blank database is created. Okay. And then let's say once you finish all the database, you want to drop. Let's say you finish, you no longer need, right? Permanently you want to delete the database. Then you can use the command called drop database school DB. Okay, school DB. Using this command, you can drop the database, right? So when I refresh the database in the Object Explorer, you see the school database has disappeared. So this is how you can create a database for your purpose. Okay, so now let me create the school DB again. And one more thing here, what you need to understand is the context. Whenever we work, let's say I'm going to go to a folder, right? Because this is more, I can easily explain. Let's say if I want to work with a folder, what I do? So this is the folder I created for this particular session. Okay, so we are going to go through each one of them. I've created a folder. So if I need to create a new file, right, what I should do? First I need to go into the folder, right? So then only I create a folder file inside the database. For example, I can create a new file, text file. But for that, what I need to do? I need to set the context to the folder. I need to go inside the database, inside the folder. Similarly here, if I want to create any object in a particular database, I need to select the database. Okay, first I need to select the database either by selecting manually in the drop down, or how I can select. Let me select the master database, or you can use school DB. Okay, so use school DB. You can use command. When I execute, it will automatically change the context. You see, automatically it got changed to school DB. Right now, whatever operation I perform, right, when I do select statement or insert statement that we are going to learn, whatever I perform, everything will be executed under the school DB. Okay, so this is the context we need to understand. So only three things that we need to understand from database point of view: creating a database, dropping a database, finally if we no longer need it, and then setting the context. Okay, so these three are sufficient. Now we have understood creating a database, and now we are going to understand table. What is a table? Table is the basic, right, which is going to hold the data. Like in Excel, similar to Excel, one sheet, right? So you see one sheet, right? So what Excel has? So Excel contains, so this is like a nothing but a table, right? So because this has field, right? This can be called as field, employee field. This is name field. This is experience field, right? That's how we can understand. And or column, B column, C column, D column, right? So in database, you can use either field to call a particular column or column, right? So both you can use interchangeably, you can use. And this is called one row, right? In Excel also it is called one row, and this is also called one record. This particular one, what I've selected is an record of an employee called Ravi Shankar, right? Because the employee belongs to him, name belongs to him, experience is his experience. So like that, all are related, right? So all are related. The fields are different, but all are related to one entity. This is called entity of Ravi Shankar, right? Similarly, if I choose this particular record or row, this is for a particular employee of David, right? So this is for a particular employee of David. Like this, we can keep creating various records. For example, I can create something called salary, right? So I can even make it numeric. Let's say 30,000, right? I can create the let's say 50,000. So like that, I can create. Then I can, but I cannot. What I cannot do in a table, we have seen in the example, right? So I cannot put some name here. I cannot put text here. Excel allows, but database will not allow. So that's the difference between Excel and database. Relational database strictly cannot allow two different data types to be stored under a single tables and under a single field, right? It has to be the same data type. Okay. So if I have a text, then everything has to be text. And what is the another rule of database? Database cannot have, you should not store multiple values in a single cell. For example, I cannot put CRM, ERP, let's say ITSM. I should not store multiple values inside a single cell, right? So this is one normalization. So normalization, you guys would have heard. So what is a normalization? There is a set of rules, basic rules in a database. Okay, so that we need to strictly follow. So the rule is, First rule is we should not store multiple values in within a single, right? If we want to do, if you want to really understand meaningful information, obviously if you can store text data, so SQL is not going to restrict you. You can keep storing, but you cannot do individual analysis, right? If you store it within a single cell, everything, you cannot do analysis. Only if you store as a separate record, right? Separate record, then you will be able to make it meaningful. I can apply filter only for ERP. I can do how many people know ERP, all these things that I can do if I store them independently, right? So that is the normalization one. And the as part of normalization one, another rule is all the records for a field should be of same data type, right? We cannot have different data type. And third thing is we cannot have another column name called experience. For example, I should not put another field called experience, right? So I cannot store a different value, right? Two columns, two fields in a table should not be the same name, right? Should not be the same name. Okay. So those are the ground rules of normalization, and we will learn more about the normalization. Right now, normalization one is good enough. Okay. And I just wanted to ask now, open up if you guys have any question so far. So before I start with start sharing the case study that we are going to learn. So do you guys have any question? Feel free to ask me now. Pardon? Yeah, you're audible, Ganesh. Yeah, good morning, Ganesh. Yes. No, I think no. One thing that we need to understand. So when I said video, for example, image is unstructured data because there is no structure, right? Everything is stored as a single file. So, but there are techniques where people use the feature extraction. So, feature extraction. So, what all information you can make from image? For example, you have a portrait image of 1,000 employees, like passport size photo of 1,000 employees, right? So how we can build a structured data? For example, we can say how many, what eyes, color of the eye. For example, you can extract this person has blue eyes, this person has brown eyes, this person has black eyes. So like that, we can feature extract. This person has a nose. Nose means sharp nose, or maybe a thick nose, or eyebrows. Is it a short, thin eyebrow, thick eyebrows? So like that we can extract and we will be storing the data. That's what I mean by converting into structured data. I'm not saying literally taking the bit by bit and storing it. You get the idea, Ganesh? How we can extract, if you do the feature extraction from the image and video, so that we can use it for analytics. Then I can say how many people are with the brown eyes, how many people are with the blue eyes. Okay. Thank you, Ganesh, for your question. So I see any question here. Okay. Yeah, the commands are not they are case sensitive. They are not case sensitive, Vinay. They are case insensitive. I'm talking about the SQL Server. It is, yeah, I'm going to share the link to download so that you guys can download the SQL Server. I will share it over email. Okay, not here. I will send it the email. And Bhuvaneshwari has a question. Good morning, Bhuvaneshwari. Commands select, drop, insert into are not case sensitive. We can write it either lower or uppercase. Yeah, thank you for answering, Bhuvaneshwari. Yeah, thank you for helping the community. Okay, all right. So now I'm going to share the, yeah, yes, Suresh. Good morning. Yes. No, it will ask actually while installing, it will ask what is the name. You can choose to give, for example, you can give Suresh as a server name, or you can give SQL Server as a server name, right? Whatever that you choose while installing, that would be the server name. Yeah, you can give a user friendly name. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Suresh. So these questions definitely are helping the others also. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Hari. Good morning. Yes. Yeah. So if you're creating an Azure, then Microsoft expects it has to be unique across all the domain, right? It has to be unique. But if you're installing on your local machine, right, obviously you will have only that machine, that server, right? It need not be unique. But if you are installing second instance, then obviously you need to install a named instance. That's a totally different concept. But otherwise, if you are installing on your local, then you can choose whatever name that you have, because you that is going to be the only SQL server that you have in your machine. Okay. So I see a question coming from Vasu. Yeah, good morning, Vasu. Happy to see you on this. Yeah. So, yeah, but nowadays there are many. The question is, assume image feature extraction has to be manual, or can it be automated? Yeah, it can be automated. Nowadays there are a lot of advanced, the artificial intelligence techniques which extracts based on the color texture, right? It identifies whether it is a blue eyes or black eyes. It classify, and also based on the shape, right? So there are a lot of automation in place. In fact, that's why whenever we in fact the lot of facial recognition, and even allows my cell phone also, right, based on my facial recognition, automatically it does auto login without asking me password. It recognizes me. So all these things are happening on the fly. Yeah, so they are automated pretty much. Advanced features are there, Vasu. Yeah, thank you for this question. Can I use MySQL software? Yeah, you can use Ganesh for your this thing, but for my practice, I'm going to use Microsoft SQL Server. You can choose to use MySQL, but there might be little one or two cases that you might find it different syntax. Conceptually, it would be the same, but syntax wise, you need to refer MySQL documentation. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go to the next important thing. I'm going to explain you. We talk about SQL query, right? So does all SQL query the same? So people talk about, now I wrote a SQL, right? SQL statement, I have to write all this thing. But broadly, there are four category of SQL that we need to understand, right? So even though, right, there are plenty of SQL statements that we can write, so many statements, so many combination of statements, but all of them falls under four category. Okay, so the first category is called data definition language. Okay, data definition language. So what we are doing here, we are only defining the structure. We are not doing anything more. We are only defining the structure. Either we are creating a database, or creating a table, altering a table, renaming a table, or renaming a table name, renaming a database, or finally dropping if we no longer need it. So this is similar to a file operation that we perform, right? For example, you go to a folder. So let's say you go to a folder, you create a subfolder, right? So have I created any new data? No, I have not created any new data. I've only created a structure, right? So I'm creating a new file, let's say window file. Have I created any new data? I have not created any new data. I've just created a file, right? So these operations are called, either whether you are creating or renaming, okay, new file. So what I'm doing, I am not, when only when I open a document and when I type, I'm actually feeding the data, right? Before that, before that, if I do any file operation, renaming a file, creating a file, deleting a file, they all are called data definition language. Similarly in SQL, right? Similarly in SQL, creating a database, creating a table, right, creating other objects, renaming, so all are called data definition language. We are not doing anything with data. Okay, and data manipulation languages, we are manipulating the data, right? We are either inserting new data, creating new data, we are updating new data or modifying data, or we are removing data, we are deleting data, right? We are doing something with the data, right? So then those statements fall under data manipulation language. Okay. And then the third category of statements are primarily select statement. So the select statement is primarily to retrieve data. So it's not going to modify data, right? So this is called data query language. We are going to only giving a statement to SQL requesting it to return the data. Show me data what you have stored. Show me. This is like opening a file. Opening a file and just browsing the file, right? Going, if it is an Excel, going tab by tab. So visualize that way. You're just opening a file and then you are browsing the data, but you are not modifying the data, right? So those kind of operations in SQL are called data query language. Okay. So primarily we use select statement. Okay. The final and foremost is the data control language. So this is to do with security, right? I might grant permission on an object. I might grant permission on a database. Who wants to see, who cannot see, and also who can do what. A person can open a database, but he cannot modify a database. It is similar to you can relate very well with the file, right? The folder. For example, I go to folder, I just created a new folder, right? I right click, and then what I do, I go to properties, and then I change security. I can change security. This is what is data control language. What he can do. So who can do is here, who can do, and what he can do. Can I allow full control, right? So that is what is data control language. Okay. And finally, you can revoke. If somebody doesn't need to have the access, you can revoke. So the broad category of SQL statements falls under 4 categories. Data definition language, it is creating the underlying schema. Second is data manipulation language, is populating, creating, deleting, modifying. Data query language is just opening and browsing. Finally, data control language is managing with the security. Okay. So with that, we have come to the end, almost end of the today's presentation, but the important one. So we are not going to learn SQL training like a statement, as I mentioned. We are not going to see what is insert statement, what is case statement, what is while statement, right? What is common table expression. We are not going to see. We are going to learn all these statements through a case study, real life case study. So what we are going to do is we are going to build a database for a restaurant application, because restaurant pretty much everyone can understand, right? We pretty much interact with the day in day out. So what we are going to do is we are going to build a database application for a chain of restaurant called New India. So New India is a chain of restaurant. They want to build an application to capture, store, process and report their daily business transactions, right? For example, what kind of transaction they want to capture? They want to capture the customer visits, who visits, and what time they visit, what they order, right? What they order, who order, which restaurant they visited, because it is a chain of restaurant, right? So which restaurant they visited, and then which day they visited, and what item they ordered, how many quantity they ordered, and what is the master list. Master list, when you say menu card, because only we can order, they can order what is there in the menu, right? So we also need to capture the menu card items, and it should help the restaurant owner to generate daily report which answers their business operations questions like okay, so this is what we are going to write a queries to answer these questions, right, throughout our 15 sessions. So what kind of business questions with that we are going to answer? Most ordered items this month, which item? Restaurant, right? They are very curious. This August month in my restaurant, which item was ordered maximum, so that now they can plan it well, they understand the business. So which customer frequently, give me the list of frequently visiting customers. So how do you identify? For example, those who visit more than 3 times a week. Total order amount day wise. right? Which is important for them, right? Day wise, they want to understand how much total order, and time of the day of the week, right? Which week, weekend versus weekday analysis, peak hours versus non-peak hours, breakfast versus lunch versus dinner. Can I do analysis? And then restaurant wise, customer wise, day wise, item wise breakup, right? So I want to get all these breakup. Then only I can understand my business very well. So this is the case study that we are going to work on for the coming days. So ensure that you join on a daily basis, because then only there will be a continuity. You will be able to understand how we are building step by step the entire case study. And finally, on the 15th day, we will have the complete system which will answer all of these questions. Okay. With that, I'm going to the quiz. So this is going to be an interesting quiz. Maybe you guys can answer the quiz. I will give a time, maybe 5-10 seconds for you to answer. So we are going to look into 4 questions. Can somebody say audio data? Yes, these are the A, B, C, D are the option. So what you need to type in the chat window is 1A or 1B or 1C or 1D. Okay, so can you guys answer now? What is audio data? Is it a structured data? Is it a semi-structured data? Is it a unstructured data, or is it everything? Okay, so I see 1C is coming. Okay, Murli is going fast to be. So hold on, Murli. You will get time for going to the second question. Yeah, you guys are right. The first C is the right answer. And what is the second answer? Right, second question. XML data is structured, semi-structured, unstructured, or all. So take time, think about it. And I see a lot of answers are coming to B, which is good. So you guys bang on with answers semi-structured. And I'm going to go to the third question. Which system database stores information about other database and logins? Okay, so is it a model database? Is it a temp database? Is it a MSDB, or is it a master database? Okay, so 3 is D. Pretty much people are typing 3D. Okay, that's the right answer. And for 4, modifying data is which SQL category? Modifying data. I think I saw somebody typed 4D. So you need to carefully read. Okay, is it a DML, DDL, DQL, DCL? Let me read what is DML. Data manipulation language. DDL is data definition language. DQL is data query language. DCL is data control language. But here the question is modifying data. Okay, so now I see 4A. Yeah, people are typing in 4A. Let's see whether 4A is the right answer. Yes, 4A is the right answer. Okay, so I think you should give a pat on your back. So you pretty much, most of you have given the right answer. So today you have learned what is a database and what is a data. We have started with what is a data and what is a database, and we have also understood what is a different types of data: structured, semi-structured, and then the unstructured data. And we have also understood the SQL Server Management Studio at a high level, right? So don't worry about it, and go ahead and install. You can use MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server, anything, whichever of your choice. And then we have seen what is a table and basic normalization, right? And also we went ahead and created a database and dropped a database, and also understood setting a context using the use database command. And finally, we have seen case study requirement. We have gone through the case study requirement, which we are going to build. Right. So now we have finished the first one. So first one is understanding the requirement. So we know the requirement. What is the requirement? Requirement is to build a database for a restaurant business. Okay. And we are going to go with this flow. On a daily basis, we are going to, next step is to build a data model, and then physical tables, populating data, and then we are going to go start building queries to answer the questions that are needed by the restaurant owner. Okay. And with that, we have come to the end of the today's presentation. I just wanted to hear feedback from you. How was it? You can just put it in the chat. Was it useful? How is my pace? Right? And was it clear? And my pace is good. And is it? How is my communication? Are you able to relate with an example? Do you guys clearly see the case study? Is it exciting? Are you going to continue joining on a daily basis? Okay, so I see a good feedback. No, this is definitely motivating me and striving me to even do better sessions from tomorrow onwards. This is going to be absolutely free because my intention is to make all of you upskill with the SQL before 15th of October. Okay, thank you so much for joining in.